the Inbound Marketing Professionals Meetup for August 2013. I appreciate everybody showing up. We're talking a little bit about SEO today, but from 4,000 foot level, and there are actually going to be some nitty-gritty details about actually implementing on your site. So I hope that you find it of interest and use. Let me go to the next slide. I'd like to mention a couple value creators. Jamie Thompson is not here tonight, but he did a great post on the discussion groups about some aspects of CAPTCHAs that really gave some insight into what was the best way to put CAPTCHAs on your site. And then Susan Luck is not here tonight, but she was very active in that discussion as well, so it brought a lot of value to the community that I wanted to recognize. This is the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, which is kindly donating space for tonight's event. I'm on the board of the organization, established 1785 by the tradespeople of New York City. That's one of the second public library in the city. We got a free trade school for the building trades, architecture, historic preservation, lots of interesting things. So it's a great organization. I'm proud to be a member of it. Of course, sponsors corporate performance artists, and share biz, and now move on. I would like everybody to take 15 seconds to introduce what you do, any questions or needs that you might have for another couple seconds, and then if there's anybody you want to meet. So we'll just go through you two and introduce yourself. So we'll start over here with Victor.
Okay.
Stand up. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Victor Lee. I'm involved in advertising, marketing, and PR. So I help businesses grow by providing help to companies that want to get the word out there in any form or fashion. So please feel free to stop by. I'm happy to chat with anybody. I love the world of media, especially digital media. And I can go on for hours, but they're limited me to 15 seconds.
Hi, I'm Michael Grinder. I'm the publisher, editor of the Old Reliable Press, preserving and publishing plays from off of Broadway's early, now called golden years.
Hi, my name is Arjun. Currently a college student working in my third startup, just raising the funding in the PR and marketing space. So we're basically building an app for our agencies. So I'm interested. Thanks.
I'm Robert Davidson. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a couple startups in China. And I've done some enterprise apps and different technology for banks and startups.
Hi, my name is Dai, and actually from China. I'm just here for some internship, and I'm currently in college student, but because I'm interested in marketing, so I think this SEO thing would help, so that's why I'm here.
Chris Roller, IT consultant and cybersecurity expert, and I'm just here to learn about sales and marketing, inbound marketing, and what the security pain points might be. Thanks, Joseph.
My name is Ned Lorenzo, and I've been doing inbound marketing since 2004, or what's called inbound marketing. And I do branding, and right now I'm just freelancing.
I'm Elena Ellison, and I do inbound marketing, site analytics, and SEO for Tech Startup NYC. We help businesses sell across eBay, Amazon, Google, all through one platform.
Scott Elliott, by day I work for IBM in sales. By night I work on a Flash network for college students. So I'm here to figure out how to get the college students onto my end.
I'm Rich Duquette. Adage called me a hybrid, a mix of PR, advertising, and sales promotion. Joseph McElroy and I work on a lot of projects together. We actually are partners in this venture, and I have my own agency that works with professional services providers.
Hello, I'm Tom Martin. I work in independent PR. I was a television news producer for many years with Good Morning America and CNN and organizations like that, and then went to work with my friend Victor here at a PR firm called MediaLink. Now I'm doing a lot of work with authors and entrepreneurs and so on. I'm very excited about the crowdfunding concept. And Victor introduced me to Joe just a few days ago, and I was so excited about inbound marketing. I came to hear more, and very happy to meet Rich as well. So, thank you.
I'm Danielle Bertel. I am a copywriter for B2B, mostly in tech space here in New York.
My name is Gio Labelle. I'm a pastor in different startups. Currently, I'm in 3 startups. I'm here to help with my wife's website, which is called fabric.com, so hair extensions, and try to get more traffic.
My name is Max Vasquez. I was part of the early stages of Web 1.0. Basically, we work with a garment center and I have a few startups, one of which has to do with bags. I have about 75 patents, a paralegal trademark, and I'm a personal friend of Joseph.
I'm Jordan Kuster, and currently I'm Chief Digital Officer at New Advertising. And right now we do large campaigns. My biggest client is City of New York. So I'll be doing
What agency is that?
City of New York.
No, what agency?
Oh, Miller Advertising? Miller Advertising. We're almost 100 years old. Jeez. And our founder is 94 and still working.
I intend to do that.
That's quite amazing. I also was a big part of Web 1.0, an entrepreneur off in the 90s, and for the last 13 years or so I've been working at an agency. But I'm looking at dipping my toe back into the water. So,
And a fellow Duke grad, too.
And I'm a fellow Duke grad. I went to school about the same time he did, and I also worked for IBM for 10 years coming out of school. So, both as a tech guy and a salesperson. So.
Good evening, my name is Andreas Jackson. I'm a freelance digital media marketer. I consult for a small agency in New Jersey, and I'm looking to share best practices and network. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Silverman. My company is Designscape, and my company, what we do is we take the brand and we put it into a 3-dimensional presentation for marketing, PR, and to be able to introduce your company to the rest of the world. And what we want to do is get people to realize that sales on telephone just doesn't work anymore. So we need to be able to do more with our web and to be able to get people to know about us. And anyone who would like to find out about more, please start talking. Talk to me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Colin Oppenheim, and I'm building some medical tourism websites right now, and I'm here to learn more about SEO.
I'm Roberto Ragone. I'm a consultant. I do strategic planning, fundraising, marketing, and outreach in terms of community outreach or outreach to government as an advocate. And my clients are nonprofits or small businesses, and also a lot of arts-related projects, such as getting a play produced or a book published. And I've come here to learn how inbound marketing can be a part of what I do. And I'm happy to have met some people already, such as Richard in this group.
Hi, Lloyd Pratt, and glad to be here and meet you guys.
Well, next slide. So this is SEO's role in inbound marketing. And of course, the 2 companies that are presenting tonight with wonderful individuals. I'll introduce them in a second. Go to the next stage, next slide. I just wanted to put SEO in the context of inbound marketing. Some people think that inbound marketing is SEO, and they're not. SEO, there was a development of SEO into the platform, and so there was a lot of work early on as SEO as being inbound marketing, but inbound marketing is greatly expanded to include conversion rate optimization, social media, email automation, engagement marketing, PR, media relations, anything that can earn attention and then convert people naturally, organically into customers. So what is the role of SEO in inbound marketing today? It's still one of the primary traffic generators. It's still a perfect example of inbound marketing, just people finding naturally in the search engines. But it also plays a part in everything that you do in the inbound marketing space. When you're creating content, no matter if it's for SEO purposes or for anything else, you can use the keywords that you use for your SEO campaign to inform what you can write about. A lot of what's called the long tail keywords, what they can talk to you about, can actually be great article topics. So it can drive content across your whole spectrum of tactics that you're doing in your inbound marketing campaign. when you're doing any technology, any automation, anything that you're doing as part of your inbound marketing campaign, you need to make sure that everything is crawled. So it fits into the SEO parameters. So your technology team, your design teams need to work with the SEO team to make sure that everything works beautifully together and the search engines can find out what's going on. When you're doing social media, when you're doing blogging, when you're doing many different things in the inbound marketing campaign, you need to be also aware that you can get links, and that can help your SEO, and they can then help it drive traffic. So link building is part of everything that you do because there's opportunities for what's called latent link building, different kinds of link building that occur. And then when you're doing your SEO analysis of what's happening on your site, the thing that you can discover is which pages on your site are getting the most traffic, the most engagement, and which are the ones that should be done more of. So SEO fits into everything that you do, and it can inform everything that you do in your inbound marketing campaign. So now I'm going to hand it off to Nikki Johnson of Plugin Group and Michael Siddle of ShareBiz, and they are going to do a wonderful presentation. They'll introduce themselves. All right.
Johnson of Plugin Group. Back up a little bit. So I worked for one agency for 10 years called TIG Global. They're based in DC. They specialized in hotel and travel internet marketing. I was vice president of copywriting for them, so I was in charge of website content development, email blasts, press releases, all sorts of client copy. And as part of that, as part of putting together the website content, I was in charge of the on-site SEO steps, and we'll get into what that exactly means. But basically, what was great about that agency, at least for me, really high turnover rate. And so people would move on to other agencies in town, but I would still be the first person that popped in their head for SEO copywriting. So they would need a project for a client, a friend, a family member. They do a good job on that first assignment, and won their speed dial anytime they need that again. So this is the basis of what became my company now. I started this 2 years ago with 2 other partners. We're based in Baltimore and DC. I actually just moved up here to New York in December. And basically, we partner with ad agencies, marketing companies, PR firms, designers, developers, and we offer white label services and overflow support. So basically, the basis of this concept is, at TIG Global, I had 6 full-time writers, but then 21 freelance writers outside of that. And so I could really expand and contract my workforce at any given time based on the exact amount of work that we had. So that's what we allow agencies to do now. So, they have people to do certain things in-house, but we allow them to bridge the gap when they need extra help. So, when we offer SEO, social media, website development and design, mobile apps, branding, all that sort of stuff.
Michael Ziddle, and my company is SEO.biz, which is an acronym for Search Engine Ranking Rules, which was a website I started as a test for keyword density in SEO about 10 years ago, and then I moved into my own business and just came up with SEO.biz, and it's been effective so far for what it is and how it is. What I do is internet marketing consulting, web design and development, a lot of white labeling as well, direct with businesses and PR agencies, etc., who need consulting and strategic, high-level strategy, as well as execution and training. So that's primarily what I do. I've been around for a while, since 1999. I remember when Bing Yahoo was started out as a company called GoTo. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And then they became Overture. Then Yahoo bought them, and so forth. And then I also remember I was working in the city, and Google called us and wanted to sell us their pay-per-click marketing. Actually, before they were PPC, they were doing CPM modeling, and we laughed at them on their paid marketing, because at the time SEO was really pretty simple. If you had a decent website with decent content, some keywords, and some links, you dominated. Things have changed severely. So that's what we're going to talk about today: is how the industry has changed and what you need to do today to be effective and utilize SEO to improve your ROI. And really, the number one thing I want to say about SEO is there's no magic bullets. If you anticipate making your business completely on search engine optimization, don't. It's not realistic anymore, and you'll be disappointed. You have to incorporate social media and everything else to have an effective website these days. Okay, let's start.
All right. So, as Mike said, the world of SEO has gotten so much more complex. And so, you hear about all these there are hundreds of different factors that the search engines look at to figure out who belongs first, second, third, fourth, or anything in term. So you hear about all these new factors coming up and all of the changes. How do I make sense of all this? Okay, so what we've tried to do in this presentation is break it down into, okay, I am the prize. At the end of the day, what the search engines are trying to do is serve relevant content to their users. So there are going to be, despite all of these changes that are always occurring, there are going to be some factors which are always going to be important. For example, you type in a certain search term into Google, the pages that show up, they're probably going to, if they're relevant to whatever the person has searched for, they're probably going to include that term somewhere on the page. So it's things like this. We've tried to break all of these things down into, okay, in this madness, like how do you make sense of it and what's really important? So the categories that we're going to cover in this 40,000 foot view of SEO are on-site, off-site, local, and social. And we'll get into the components of all those. So it always starts with on-site SEO. And basically, the first step in that process is keyword selection. So for each main page of your website, you want to optimize it for one or two main phrases that are actively searched. The idea is that you can use each page of your website to drive qualified customers to your site. So you want to use a tool like Google AdWords Keyword Tool, which is going to become a keyword planner. They're taking the free version offline pretty soon. But you want to use a tool and just type in keywords that you think might be relevant to whatever it is that you offer on your website, and make sure that people are actively searching for this. And there are, there's one little checkbox that you can click on there to make sure that, or to allow it to just search for an exact match of that term. There are also, if you unclick that, it'll give you other terms that are similar to that you might not have thought of. So you always want to do that research first, and sometimes the results are really surprising. But definitely, you want to use each page of your website, again, as a platform to drive qualified customers to your site who might be interested in what you offer. Okay, so once you've got the keywords picked out for each page, then it's a matter of incorporating those into the content. And the first places that you start are three fields called the metadata. These sit in the back-end source code of the page. And the three ones that we've listed here are the title tag, the meta description, and the meta keywords. The title tag is the most influential on-site factor. And the reason is because it's limited to 70 characters, and the search engines figure that people who know what they're doing are going to maximize with that very limited amount of space with the keywords that are most relevant to that page. The meta description is the next field of metadata. It's actually not a direct ranking factor, it's an indirect ranking factor in that if you incorporate keywords into that field, where this shows up, so the title tag, when you search for a term, the title tag is generally the clickable link on the search results page into that website. The little blurb that shows up below it is generally the meta description. And the idea here is that if you incorporate keywords into that field, they're going to be bolded on the page when someone searches for that term. So it's just a subtle cue to a user kind of scrolling through that page that, hey, this page is relevant to the term that I've searched for. So in that, because click-through rate to the site is a direct ranking factor, that's how it helps you. So and you always want to write the meta description kind of like a little teaser blurb that encourages people to click through into that page. Then there's the meta keywords. This is not a ranking factor at all directly, and in fact, it's even arguable whether it's worth the time at this point. The reason that I mention it is, our SEO people tend to just use it as a reference point to the keywords that have been targeted on the page. It's literally just keyword that you've targeted, comma, keyword that you've targeted, comma, keyword that you've targeted, comma. And it just serves as a reference point on the site itself, especially, which is especially helpful in link building. So when you're building links from other websites, and you need a reference point for the keywords that have been targeted on that page. Okay, so once you've got those fields all set up, then it's a matter of integrating those into the copy on the physical page. As we said before, gosh, when we both started, it was a matter of, okay, this is the keyword that I've targeted, and I'm going to put it on page 5 times in exact order. It was brutal copy to read. Now the search engines have gotten a lot more sophisticated in terms of picking up these keywords if they're separated. So let's say, I had a client over there, Fort Lauderdale, Florida hotel. No one uses that term in everyday conversation just like that, Fortunately, the search engines have evolved to where they see, hotel in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in that paragraph. They go, okay, I get it. This paragraph is relevant to Fort Lauderdale, Florida hotel because I see those components. And it's called semantic search, but basically the search engines have also evolved to the point where they can pick up synonyms as well. And the concept here is that sites that have really good content, really descriptive and whatever, they're going to incorporate synonyms of those phrases that you've actually targeted in describing that topic in illustrious language. So that's the idea there.
Question? If you, for example, if you have an e-commerce site and you have a lot of, the same product in, for example, 20 different colors, how important is it that the meta description is unique for each product?
Well, you want to go with the dynamically generated solution?
Yeah.
Or the product description on the actual site?
Products are tough often because you're not going to have usually a very extensive description, right? The shirt, for example, it's a t-shirt, it's white cotton, it's 100 threaded, if you even say thread count on a t-shirt. So it's difficult in that environment to get much copy. So you would want to put the attributes of color and size all on one page because that's going to bulk up the readable content on that individual page. A few years ago, you might have actually done that where you might have made an individual page for each color. That's not really recommended anymore because there's not going to be enough uniqueness for each one of those pages. You have to look at what the copy is and how you can make it unique. Because if this page is only 5% different than this page, and this page, and this page, Google's going to see that and say, well, you guys are spammers. You could have all condensed this down to one page that was a decent description, use some attributes on it for product selection when they're choosing the product, which would be a better user experience as well as a more rich page versus 20 of your different color variations and sizes. So that's my recommendation today is make one good page and then work on your backlinks and socializing of that page versus 20 pages that are junk.
This is actually a theme for SEO in general. I mean, it's better to do quality versus quantity, and you'll see that repeated in our
EMDs, I just wanted to throw that in quick. EMD means exact match domains. Late 90s, early 2000s, if you had an exact match domain, ManhattanApartments.com, you were pretty much guaranteed to be #1, primarily just because of your domain name. A few months back, Google announced a sort of penalty or degradation of the value of having an exact match domain, and there was a bunch of shedding of people giving up their exact match domains. In my experience, because I have a couple clients who actually still have some, they are still relative. So still choosing a domain name with your key terms in it is still relative. You can still do it, and it still will have some influence. It's just not as guaranteed as it used to be. The caveat is, if you're going to do it right. If you're going to commit to an exact match domain, commit to it as a business and a brand that you want to do. If you're just doing it for junk SEO purposes, don't. Because that won't help you. Google will see that. Just wanted to throw that out. So, example, like your company is a real estate company. If you can incorporate real estate into the name of it, you should, if possible.
What about the density of your keywords in the name, so to speak? Is it still a higher density or value? So, for example, if I was doing flowers.com, should it be flowersx.com or something like that? Since flowers.com will be taken.
Well, right, yeah, because flowers.com should be taken. So if you're
iFlowers.com.
East Village Florist, so eastvillageflowers.com.
What about just changing a character or say two characters?
Well, changing a character makes it not a word, right?
Well, it makes it brand.
It does make it a brand, but it's not the exact match word.
Well, you still have the word within.
If you still do. So like if you wanted to do...
So if you had flowers, but if you put flowers X or something like that.
E-flowers. Right. Sorry.
Flowers X. You get the shot out.
Well, technically speaking, the word, can Google parse it, and would they parse it? If you do your optimization on the page properly, yes, they probably will. But technically speaking, at just a straight geek level, it's not the same as an exact match.
Or it could be Racer X.
Racer X. Right. Okay, so that's just a tip, something to consider. I might run out of time on this, so I want to hit the high points. OG tags, which is Open Graph, which is Facebook. Over the weekend, I did a bunch of SEO audits for different companies in some highly competitive spaces, one being vitamins. That's brutal. And then the other one that I did was jewelry beads, which oddly is very competitive. Who knew? But there's a massive community for people doing jewelry. Stay-at-home moms, big community, and competitive, and education. The two biggest ones that were more difficult, the two competitors of this one client that ranked the best both incorporated Open Graph tags. Open Graph is Facebook's meta tag information. You know, his whole philosophy, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Just know that you want to incorporate Open Graph meta tags on your page. Because for whatever reason, Facebook doesn't necessarily honor your regular meta description or your image tags or whatever. And so the Open Graph tag tells Google specifically, like if somebody shares this, put this message, put this link, put this image. I don't know if anybody's had that experience of trying to post on Facebook and you get these weirdo images that are the side advertisement images and not the core thing. Use Open Graph and it solves that. Additionally, with Open Graph and Facebook, you can get some advanced analytics from Facebook about the interaction of your content, but you have to set up a quote-unquote app. You go to you log in, you set up your app, you get an ID, you put that on your website. It's FB_app ID number. You know, there's more to it. Just know about it. That's what this is. That Open App ID actually also is part of, gets counted by Google in their microdata schema test as a schema tag. We'll get more into that in a minute. But just know that Open Graph is important. You should be doing it. And if your programmer or coder can't do it, refuses to do it, find another programmer. Next up, robots index follow, no follow. That tag tells the robots to index this page and then follow all the links on this page. There's some debate if you need to use it, not use it. It's recommended by Google to use it. So pretty much the way I approach SEO is Google's the god of search and we follow what Google says. Right. You know, if I didn't have a little G sign on my forehead, I probably would. That's pretty much it. So, and also incorporate as many Google free tools that you can. Right? They're giving our information to the NSA, but they're also using it for themselves to determine our ranking. So, if you're going to you're targeting Google, use as many tools as you can. One of which you can follow their rules and their recommendations, so robot index tag. It also can help with duplicate content, etc. There's also specifically from this SEO audit, a couple of the top players also, in addition to the generic robots index tag, they also had the Googlebot index tag, or robots tag, which specifically speaks to the Googlebot. Googlebot, do this, don't do that. Also, just something to keep in mind, that tag is a suggestive tag. It's not a directive. Okay? And a lot of this stuff is suggestions by Google. And Google, I suggest that you do this. If you really want control, you have to do it at the server level. which is, I don't want anybody to see this page, so put it behind the firewall, etc., etc. Moving on. Really, this is really, really important. If you take nothing else today from SEO, take this. It's the author tag and the publisher tag. Google, a massive part of SEO right now, is determining your authority as a publisher and as an author. Who are you? And it's a lot easier to find out who you are these days through Google, because you have a Gmail, which means you have a user account. Your author tag is actually tied to your individual Google user account. Publisher tags are tied to your business's Google Plus page. They're literally just little tags that you put in your source code that tells Google, this is me. And then they also tie it, the author is specifically tied to you, your user profile. And then you go on your user profile, your personal Google Plus page, and you say, I'm a contributor to this source, and point to that source, whatever that is. And so you're tagged on that. And then your activity over here in Google Plus is going to be counted towards the value, your authority as an author and as a publisher. What circles are you in? Who's talking to who? If you've got, you buy some Google or Google Pluses from a bunch of people in the Philippines, all right, that's not going to really help you. It's probably going to be marked as spam. Right? But if you're talking to me and you're talking to him and you're talking to you and so forth from this group, well, our associations with each other in the groups we are establish us as authorities in our particular realm. And Google's looking at that. And much rather have one share from you than 10,000 shares from people in Turkey who don't speak English and it's just robots. So, and Google can tell the difference because everybody uses Google Analytics. Google can see IP addresses and so forth. So that's really, really, really important in conjunction with content. To summarize just really quickly, keep these two thoughts in mind about what search engine optimization is. Readable, unique content. Is my content different than their content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And it has to be readable, not just by humans. And in fact, 10 years ago, SEO didn't care about if humans could read it or not. It's not important. But now we care, is it readable by humans and can Google read it? A lot of companies get caught up with the latest and greatest, like Ajax and so forth. Awesome, slick, that endless scrolling page. Actually, I hate that, but that endless scrolling page of Facebook, right? Well, the problem with that is Google can't read it. So if you design your website with the latest, greatest technology that hasn't been SEO approved, you've wasted your time and money. And then you're going to come back to all SEO people and have to redo it. I just got flashed. So, moving on, that was Ajax. I sort of hit those two together.
I got a question for entity, but the author is who? You?
Individuals.
Okay,
yeah.
So then how do they connect you to abc.com, right?
Well, on abc.com, there's the author tag. I wrote this article, which points to my Google Plus personal page. But I'm also the manager of this business profile. See how they tie it all together? And they look at that stuff now. So that's really, really important.
So what you're saying, okay, you're putting your name in there.
Yeah, you're putting your name in there. So
Google assumes that robots haven't taken over yet, and so there are people behind this company. Who are the people behind this company? That's the point that's happening.
I mean, in the real world, for all of you, the manifestation that is really important is if when you do a search and you see pictures of people in the search results,
right,
it's because of this.
Right. Yes. That's how people are getting their faces into search results.
Right.
Okay. Question. We are working on incorporating a blog on the site to generate much more content, of course. But as you said, we are looking for somebody who can program a blog which has infinite scrolling because we like all the clicking. So I just wondered, in relation to what you said now, because the whole point with the blog is generating SEO, right? So you said that infinity or like this.
Here's there's a bit of a mind shift that I think has to occur in the entire SEO community. You should do SEO because you can, and it's relatively easy to do, at least on-page and technology orientation. But if you're doing something just for SEO, you kind of got the wrong mindset anymore. You used to be able to do that. You can't anymore. You have to really embrace the idea as web designers, owners, developers. You are publishers. You are writing and creating strong content.
Of course, but you said that if you have a WordPress, for example, which has the infinity scroll function, Google can read the content.
No.
But are you clicking through? Do those posts, individual posts, click through to a separate page?
When you click on a post, of course, it comes there.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the problem with the infinity scroll is that it generally generates pages by JavaScript, so it's pulling content after the fact is loaded. And if it has no other way to link to that content, then it won't get indexed. So what you have to make sure is that you have sitemaps and you have other ways to get to the content.
Right.
And the shame generally with these technologies like parallax design is another one that I've heard really recently, where you've got these long scrolling pages, is it really removes the opportunity then to optimize each one of those individual pages for different keywords. So you've got one set of keywords that you can go for on this site that scrolls. But as long as you break it up into separate pages beyond that, you're good.
So long as you make sure that Google can find it. Because if you rely it used to be that you would just have your index page, Google would come and crawl those links. But if your links are being loaded only through JavaScript, Google's not going to find those, can't crawl them.
But each post will have its own.
Each post should have its own individual full page.
Yeah.
So I started doing inbound marketing in 2004, and I always said, SEO is too difficult. Just pay-per-click, figure out what you're going to make your money. If pay-per-click is easier, and back then building my list was pay-per-click. So I come back, and I still believe that you want to drive traffic to your website, who's a relevant audience, who's going to buy from you, because most of my marketing is not selling pay-per-click or doing affiliates on my site, it's really getting clients. And so I started doing some research, tons of research on long-tail keywords. I went to SEO Moss to find out the competition with my keywords. And so I come back to the same conclusion, because when I do my keywords, you have about.com that has, their links are just unbelievable. The competition to get even ranked on the first page with Google is incredibly difficult. So when I think about all of this, which is great, I think about, am I ever going to be ranked on the first or second page? And it doesn't seem so, because, like you said, it's very, very competitive now.
Well, you're right. It's a daunting task in some cases. It depends on your industry and the competition. But here's one of the great things about where SEO is local. And even 5 years ago, you pretty much SEO'd on a national level. That was your only opportunity, right? Well, now with Google Local, it's not just Google Local, but with Local, you notice that when you search something, the results are based on your geo address. You start seeing things that are really relevant to New York now. I know this a lot from apartments and so forth, because I do a lot in real estate. Well, it's true, and I'll post it up on Meetup, a little study I did the other day. 4 results. Same key phrase, searched in 4 different geolocations, because you can set your geolocation in Google search now, 4 different results. Of those 4 different results, I think there were, the 40 total, I think there were like 4 Google Plus pages. That's another thing that's happened in search and SEO, is Google's returning results. If you're logged into Google, they're returning results based on your personal history and connections. So that's why it's important. First, you've got to have the page and the good content and the optimized key terms. But that's why you need to work your circles, your social media, so that that can show up. It's an opportunity.
I was just going to say, too, share your frustration, right? Because Google Analytics, they have this not provided category. I don't know if you've looked at the reporting, and basically anyone who's logged into Google, they don't show you the keywords that they're using. That's how plus, so it's great, actually, to do the sponsor match section, so SEM and PPC, and pair that with what we're doing. Because then you can see, not only the keywords that are being actively searched, but also which ones are converting best for you. And then you can go, okay, this term, which is actively searched, is not converting as well for me. I'm going to replace this one with this other one that I didn't expect to do so well.
What section of Google Analytics? I'm not sure what you're
That's
talking about.
Oh, in PPC data.
Oh,
So when you get those results back, you can see.
Yeah, I'm not doing PPC anymore.
Oh.
That's why I was thinking researching that.
It's a good idea, and it's a great idea for news sites as well. So.
And Mike, a question for you, for both of you. I work in a category that's intensely competitive. My clients, I have several in the category. I'm forever doing searches to see where they rank for certain search terms. Am I doing myself a disservice? In other words, am I building up some kind of a reputation?
Yes, you're visiting those sites more frequently than the average user.
So are they So in fact,
the results are just skewed because they notice that you're visiting these sites.
So are they giving me results on page 1 of the search results that are the ones I want to see because
They're trying to do that with everything.
So what you have to do, the way to truly test your ranking, your generic SEO ranking, you have to log out of Google, clear your history, and if you really want to do it, go incognito and notate what your search, do your search as USA. Or try to mimic what your client is. So like New York real estate, when I do an SEO report for my client, I log in incognito and change it to New York because they're targeting New Yorkers who are searching for that. But again, it's a barometer.
I might mention there's actually one other way too, which I just discovered recently. If you use the Google AdWords and you're building out an AdWord campaign and you do, there's a way to preview what your ad will look like in the search results using keywords. Will those natural search results to show up or unpersonalized as well?
That's a good tip.
There's no like standard rankings anymore. Everyone is ranked results or personalized based on user history.
Even Bing, what do you know about since we're on this?
Sure.
Bing, I really have ignored Bing utterly, but they are getting some traction. I've heard some reports out of the West Coast anyway that Bing's relatively popular there. I guess around the streets, doing the Google thing.
Facebook trying to come back.
But I think that are they doing local, search results based on your IP address as well? You're not sure? Okay. Sorry, folks, I didn't look into that.
I think you better move on to the next slide.
All right. There's one more question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Is Google looking for new material on websites?
Constantly.
Yes. It's called the Google Freshness Update. It came out like a year and a half ago, and so basically it does reward sites that regularly produce great content. And I was just telling Elena, so basically, a lot of times that sort of skews the results for a lot of big brands that have enough staff to regularly produce great content. But yeah, and that also kind of leveled the playing field. There could, in years past, be equal arguments made for having multiple sites that were interlinked versus having one site with all these subsections. I feel like that update kind of put the advantage in having sort of a larger site where you're continuously updated in one place versus all of these little balls spinning that you have to keep going. So. Totally, and your keywords and
who your audience is.
And how interrelated they are.
Right, because I think that if any company that's got multiple true addresses with staff in those addresses and has a unique local community, really should have a unique social presence. New York real estate, San Francisco real estate, because or just totally independent. Because they have their unique, and then cross.
I'm not saying you should be a standalone site. That's where I'm making a lot of my money. But at the same time, I'm just saying that it tends to give the advantage sometimes to bigger brands.
Unless you're really. And then another thing to look at as far as content is trying to figure out how to get your content and stuff that you're doing in your social networks back on your website. That's a big thing. Have you ever noticed your activity online in the social networks? You're doing stuff on your Facebook account that is relative to your business on your Facebook profile, but it's not on your website. That activity is not there. I'm mentioning that because I'm working on some tools to do that. So to pull your social activity back into your website and give you some unique content. Okay.
All right.
Quick question. You said incognito. What do you mean by that?
Oh, it's a setting. So Google Chrome, sorry, or private window if you're on Firefox, and if you're on Internet Explorer, stop using that and use a real browser. Incognito is a Chrome setting. It's up in the right corner. It just goes private. Where supposedly they don't, give your information at the end.
Okay, so off-site SEO. So you've done your on-site SEO. You've picked out the keywords that go on each page. How do you compete against other sites that are optimized for those same terms? It comes down to link building, and it's about quality versus quantity. If you have 100 links from really good, highly respected sites, that's better than 10,000 links from mediocre sites, or even worse, like spammy ones. So the best way to approach this process is to create great content. Otherwise, you're just going out there going, "Can you link to me, please?" No. Create an article, a top 10 tips on whatever your area of expertise is. Put that content out there, and then you can use that as, it's called link bait, to basically, approach other site owners that are well known in your industry and say, "Hey, I've created this great piece of content. Why don't you link to it, because your users are going to find it helpful." So it just gives you sort of a hook to draw them in and make them interested.
So how do you do that? So you just send them an email?
Yeah.
You just send them an email. And
Yeah.
where do you find their contact information on the website that is for, just for that? Because I'm sure they get...
Contact us. Sometimes you'll find webmaster or whatever info is generally good. But it's also great to approach this process as a human. So a lot of times those emails that go to info or whatever are just jumped as spam because it's a receptionist and she's like, "I see a million of these things," right? If you can use LinkedIn to find someone who is on that marketing department and send them, the email, send them your LinkedIn profile right afterward to show them, "Hey, I'm a person," it makes it so much more effective. But you generally, with that message that you send them to, the more you can approach it as a human. So not the same, clearly cookie cutter message that looks like you're just, sending it to everybody and their mother. If you can comment on something that they've written on their blog, or make it feel like you care about them, they're more apt to be warm in their response and be receptive to you. So, yeah, sure, no problem. Okay, so, right. There's two benefits to approaching the process this way. One, you build inbound links, which are really important for SEO, and two, you promote your site in places where target users are bound to find you. So the places that you can go in terms of trying to build links, social bookmarking site. And some of these, mind you, are the no-follow sites that he was talking about, where it might not necessarily count officially as a link to the site, but at the same time, it's still a good idea for this reason. And it might get people to find you who will link to you using the follow kind that counts. Guest blogging is one of the best ways to gain inbound links to your site. So basically offer to write a post for somebody else on their blog about something related to their industry, and kind of, or a topic that you've written, kind of respin that on your website. Generally, for a lot of small companies, I have someone offering to write content for me for free. Awesome. So that's a good approach. Article directory submission is another one. Now, this went rampant in terms of spam years ago, where people would just take the same article, put it in a article spinner type thing, which would basically just add synonyms and do it in an automated way, and it was just horrible. So Google put out the Google Panda update, and it basically, and people can content too, we'll catch it, but basically Google has been trying to root out approaches like this where it looks like it's the same thing over and over again. But you can still use these article directory sites like about.com and whatever. If you write an article there on the same approach that you use for the content that you put on your website as a link bait, that's a good idea. PR outreach, so putting together a press release. The inbound links from that are going to help, but also if some reporter picks up that story and writes an article about you that links to your website, and it's from a respected publication, that's great. So Then you've got blog commenting, forum sharing. Again, these are probably the no-follow kind, but at the same time, if you find a blog or a forum that's talking about something relevant to the content that you've produced, it's a great way to promote the content that you've created and find people that might be interested in that topic. And then there are relevant social media groups. So you can find, groups in LinkedIn and Facebook that talk about or that relate to your industry and promote the content that you've created there. And then, again, as we were talking, it comes down to just emailing actual people with, hey, I wrote this article. I think your audience might like it.
Local SEO. I talked earlier, you can't really see it in this, but this is the example I was talking about, the 4 different results. Setting my geo location. Point being is local is very important. And this will be up on the Meetup group, this PowerPoint presentation. One of the first things, obvious things to do, probably of all of the local, the most important thing to do is get listed in Google Maps. It's very important. It's a process. You have to human verify it. They send you a postcard. You have to log back in and put the PIN number in. But Google Maps is very important, which now also ties into your Google Plus page. They're also collecting reviews, and getting good ranking there is going to affect your local search.
How is Maps different than Plus?
Oh, I know, it's maddening. It's maddening. It's maddening.
The worst thing.
They have a lot of work to do as far as usability of their systems, because if you, and look, Google Maps is a nightmare. There's no doubt about it.
It's great to use, but
it's great to use.
How do you get into that? How do you know they work?
You just go to. You start with your Google Plus page. When you create your business Google Plus page, say that it's a local business, which then will create a map listing, and that's the best way to do it these days. If you already have old map listings and now you've got a Google Plus page, I'm working on an article right now about this because their process is a nightmare to try and convert your old map listing to a new Google Plus page, etc. It is a nightmare technically, all the hiccups with Google, but you do need to do it if you want to be known locally. Then there's Google Plus, and then Bing Maps, Yahoo Directory Local, Yelp. I really dislike Yelp.
It's angry people.
Yeah, a lot of angry people, and there's Yelp has been sued 3 or 4 times for predatory practices, etc. You don't have much recourse if you start getting negative. Now, if you're on Yelp and you're just a stellar company and you can satisfy all your customers all the time, then Yahoo for you and push it. Because you get that one negative review and that brings down your average, and then you complain about it to Yelp, and because it'll be totally libelous stuff is often posted in Yelp. And what'll happen is, I've got a client right now. Her industry is, she's a good client, real person, etc. She's gotten some nut jobs who posted nasty stuff. Google or Yelp is only showing the nasty stuff. She's got 50 awesome reviews from real people that are filtered. Because she basically sent out an email to her client base saying, hey, can you write a review for me on Yelp? People logged in too quickly, wrote real reviews by real people, but Yelp is filtering it. And she was even a paid customer of Yelp. I'm like, stop paying them. Stop, they're hurting your business. But that's a whole other discussion, online reputation management. Merchant Circle and City Search, those are a couple others. There's also a whole slew of other ones. Don't go bonsai with this. Don't just go list it everywhere you can. There are some services. Yext is a service that's available. Some people like it, some people don't. Another place you can find some solutions is check Fiverr, but be careful of Fiverr. There's so much spam and junk on Fiverr. Does everybody know what Fiverr is?
Yeah. No.
Fiverr's a funny website. It's basically, what will you do for $5? And there's actually a lot of services out there, like guest blogging. You can find some legitimate places to do your guest blogs where you pay them. Hey, Mr. Travel website. They're PR3, they're valid. You check it out first. You write your article, you pay them $5, they'll put it on their website. Does Google like that idea? No. But is it valid marketing? Well, if they're a real website and have real traffic, you know.
If they're getting paid $5, it's probably not good content.
Actually, they're good for certain things.
Of course.
Yes.
But you have to be very selective and very careful.
If you need a logo design, it's like, I got 10 $5 people to give me 10 logos. So it's,
yeah, some things are valid, some things are not. I had some guy the other day write, I wrote lyrics for this goofy song we did for a video. A couple rounds of back and forth, $5. What are you gonna do with that? You know, then this other guy wanted $5, but then he wanted a licensing fee of $300. Yeah. So anyway, and then just an example of hyperlocal regional sites is I also have the site one called NewYorkLife.com, which I'm sort of half serious about, half not. But that's just an example of a hyperlocal site that you might target to get your post on, possibly buy advertisement, etc. So, because local references are important. If you're buying advertisement, you can get a direct link. It's something to look at as well.
One key point for this slide too, so you have the traditional SEO results, which are generally along the left. You've got the sponsored matches, which are along the top and the right. These local results are the ones tied to the map. So when you see those little pins with like A, B, C, D, that's what these local business directories primarily.
Yeah, you can't really see it. That's what the pin is. So I highlighted it here. Those were all Google, like that's a Google page, Google page, Google page, Google page. So, yeah. Anyway. All right, next.
Okay, social factors. So basically the idea here is that, when social media first came out, the search engines were like, how much do we count likes to a page as being important? And so they were playing around with it a while. But the idea is that, having social activity that's associated with your site just shows the search engines that, look, this is not just a site that someone has put up and set it and let it, and years go by and nothing happens. People are actively engaging with this site. People like it. People find it helpful. And so the other idea too, same with link building, you use social media activity. It not only benefits you from an SEO perspective, but it also offers a great way to promote the site to relevant audiences.
I've seen you can get 500 likes for $5 on $5.
Exactly.
So, don't do that. Try. They're wasting your time and money. Stay away from retweets too. They can actually be detrimental to your business. Buying likes, buying retweets, tweets, etc. Just don't do it.
But anyway, and then
I just have a question. I thought Google wasn't able to see Facebook.
Oh yeah, there was that big argument a while back where Facebook was blocking Google.
Yeah, that's Twitter or something like that. Is that not true now? Google can do search engines, and Google can look at Facebook and see the likes and see the content.
It depends on the page and the setting of the page. Like so when you're setting up your business page, make sure your setting is public.
So Google can do that. So
yeah, you can see
off Google.
Yeah,
I thought it did.
No, I never see the Facebook results outside of the person's name, their profile, but I never see any business results or anything like that.
Well, they generally depreciate, but they are there. I mean, I would usually go to the second page for some long tail bird.
Long tail.
Yeah, they're coming up on the second page.
And I'm starting to see Facebook business pages show up right along, at least for brand SEO, I'm seeing the Facebook page show right up alongside of the company. And in some cases, this one client did some spammy stuff and got taken down, but their Facebook page is still showing up and their LinkedIn business page is showing up. So where their website isn't.
Then I've just listed, some of the most popular social media sites. There's 50 gazillion of these things. And so it generally comes down to, prioritization of time. There's so many different things that we've presented in this presentation that are important. It's just a matter of, if you're going to prioritize, I'd probably do sort of this order, depending on your product too. So.
As far as YouTube, is YouTube the number 2 search engine? Is that true? That's the number 2 search engine?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
That's an
YouTube, yes, it is.
It's far as SEO, how
Does it come above Bing?
No, in terms of member searches, there's it's a search engine for specific things. But I think in terms of, I think which number of searches on YouTube.
I consider YouTube just part of Google.
But when they do a search engine evaluation, they don't consider it a search engine, but in actual fact it is. But it's only searching for videos on the site.
Because I heard that if you optimize for videos, it's good for SEO.
Absolutely. It's one of the final frontiers in terms of it's less competitive because not everybody produces videos, So if you incorporate some keywords in the title of your video or whatever, there's a good chance, depending on your industry, obviously, that you might show up, especially if you're B2B.
And you have to cross-promote it and put the video on your website and your blog and promote it through your social. And also optimize your page. You can add a few links on your page.
So the SEO would only happen in YouTube, not so much in the web?
No, not necessarily. If you optimize your YouTube page and your channel, you can show up in your YouTube video can show up in the search results for a given key term.
But would it show up if you have that same video on your website, which is your blog, which is really what you want to promote? Because I find that when I go to YouTube and
then your video lives in YouTube.
I thought maybe because it was on YouTube, it would optimize for your page. Because because I find that YouTube in itself sometimes is, even when I search on there, it's not the same thing as on the page.
It sounds like you're doing it right, though. You have a blog post about the video where you've ideally put in some keywords related to that, and you have a page on your website that introduces the video, which then lives on YouTube.
You have 3 or 4 questions, and then 4 questions, and then we'll be done. All right?
That was good.
I had a couple of questions. With the author tags, don't they have publisher tags for business, Google Plus business pages as well?
Correct. Publisher tag and those are the two most important. The publisher tag and the author tag.
So the publisher tag you would use if you were branding a business page?
Correct.
Okay. Second question is what do you think about the new deep article algorithm?
The what?
The deep article algorithm.
I haven't explored yet, other than I know they call it deep. What are your thoughts?
It's a new algorithm now where basically Google is, looking at the actual size of the content.
Content. Well, they've kind of been doing that all along. Just for my heads up, here's a tip from the SEO audits that I did over the weekends. The average page count, total words on page, that's visible in GUI, was 900. The better ones were over 1,000.
Yeah, now they're going even longer than that, but they're only linking into certain brands, so they're linking into reputation and authority as well. So New York Times will show up now based off of this new algorithm, which is based off the fact that their reputation and their content.
Right, readable, unique content, and the more the better, and the more on one page now, the better, and relevant link popularity.
Let me also point out that in terms of this content stuff, that what we're finding also is if you can create content that is different in nature than what your competitors are doing that have authority, then you can get ranking. If you write similar sorts of content, even though it's unique, but it's similar to whatever some other people are already in, it's not going to get us that much traction.
But I think this is a great question for the end of the presentation because it kind of speaks to the theme, don't people do things that are good, that are going to help put this content on your site out to real people.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have 2 questions. First question is the social media site, for example, like YouTube. You post a video. How important do you think it is to use the text field to write a long keyword-rich? The thing is that, the social media accounts are often used to just post very short text, basically.
Well, there's the new script tool where they're actually transcribing it for you. That's one thing. What I like to do is put a decent description, basically meta tags, length, 250 character description, roughly. And then in that description field, put a link back to my source article. That's where I promote it. That's why even if they come in through your YouTube video, if you made sure to put your link in the description, they will then presumably come visit your website.
Okay, and the other question was, recently we tried to do a press release, and we aimed like 100 journalists and high-profile blogs. It was a very good news, actually. We thought it was brilliant, but nobody decided to pick it up, even though we offered them, everybody offered them as an exclusive story. And most didn't even answer back.
Did it have news about it?
It was big.
What was it about?
Did you
let's
all right, but the thing is that, so we ended up, what we ended up was posting it on like PRWeb or SPY, one of these, and it blew up. They are not like the page rank on Google when you search on something, it's coming high up. But I hear from other people that SPY and PRWeb, you should be very careful about that. Google is actually looking at it somewhat as spam.
From a duplicate content perspective, I think that's the only way that it would come up as a red flag. But generally what Google does is if it sees duplicate content, it's going to put it in the supplemental index. So it's not necessarily going to show the same page or the same press release 50 gazillion times. Instead, they want to have a variety of content so that users scrolling down are going to see different things.
Yeah, I've done some press releases and so forth, and most of them are been on that level of PRWeb. As far as real journalists and so forth, I'm not a PR guy. There were, I think, several here today. So if you're on real PR, dealing directly with editors, then you should consider a true PR professional.
So let's have one last question here.
If you want to promote a product off of your website on Facebook, would you think it's a good idea if you create a fan page or group to start promoting the product?
It's now called a business page, absolutely. And work that. And then joining groups as the fan page. Because then, Facebook, you got your personal user profile, and then you have your business entity. So first create your business entity page, and then do your socializing as that business entity, because you'll get brand marketing out of that. But don't spam. If you start spamming groups, they're going to get banned, and that's just, too relative stuff. I think we're cut off.
So thank you, everybody. What I want to do is actually, what we're going to do is we're going to start creating interest hangouts, so that if you have more questions, you can actually, let me know. I'll let everybody know that we're having like an SEO hangout. We'll have some experts in there. You can log in and come into the hangout, ask questions, find out more detailed information. Maybe some of you guys will be involved with that if you want. And we're going to do that for each subject area in the inbound marketing. So you'll be able to ask even more depth questions. We still can hang out for a little while. They're going to stay back here so you can ask some questions.
Can I very quickly make a quick comment, Joseph?
Sure.
Yeah, I had a site that I found called Leela.com, Lela.com, it's still up. I work with Joseph and Michael on it, and my advice to everybody here is they made extraordinary change to traffic. We had thousands of users daily. These guys got us to the place where we actually exceeded in SEO other sites that had millions of users. And my only regret was putting in stuff that I thought was cool, like ultimate scrolling pages, and they came up with a good workaround for me before I talked to these guys and found out, well, there's a downside to that. So I would only say, start here if you want to have visitors on your site. If you want to do a beautiful site, just have your designer go. But if you actually want to have visitors and traffic, talk to guys like this, and I'm sure, and copywriting is a huge part. We had a lot of copy too.
And there
are
huge difference. Yeah, and there are workarounds.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you guys very much. I always do a tip at the end. I was going to talk to people blogging tips. The word says everybody should consider having a secondary or a tertiary blog, and do it on one of the social networks. All right, have it link back to your content, bring most of your content in your blog, but then have it, there's summaries and some content on these blogs. It'll show high in search engines right away because these sites are well-established authorities. Most people do not know that you can have a Quora blog. If you're an expert, you should have a Quora blog as your second blog that points back to your original blog. Google Plus, there's now a thing called Direct Connect. You can get your custom URLs to be with your name, your company name, whatever, instead of those numbers. And then you can actually use that as sort of a blog-like environment. And Facebook has notes which can be used as a blog. And then there are some really cool blogging platforms coming out. Look at those up. They're going to be really great. All right? Up till there. All right. I think it'll be September 16th. I think that's the date we're going to do this. It's going to be a little bit earlier in the month because this place is booked up on the next one. All right? And it's going to be, I want to do something about social media. So if anybody wants to pitch or talk about social media, come to me. We're working on a program. All right? Cool.